You spent some time last week at Jets training camp. What did you see from that offensive line?
Well, I think the first thing is you saw that they were competing against a defensive line that is full of monsters. And you heard Marcus talk about them before we started the show, or right at the outset of the show. And when you're going up against Quinnen Williams and Johnson and some of these players that they have there, you're going to have some bad looks. Right. If you watched Hard Knocks, you saw them get dominated by the Carolina Panthers at practice with Aaron Rodgers throwing the football out of bounds. But when you see them at practice, it's an offensive line that you think needs to gain some toughness, an offensive line that needs to gain an edge. And here's the thing that worries me the most about the sound bites we just heard. I want 5 people, but I don't believe that there are 5 people in those spots. Marcus always talks about continuity, chemistry amongst the offensive line and the defensive line, because everything has to be tied in. If you don't have 5 dudes, you don't truly have one, and that's going to be very important for them to figure out before facing the Buffalo Bills.
I'm glad you brought that word continuity into play, because that's my biggest concern. Right, time on task with the guys that you'll actually start week 1, September 11th against the Buffalo Bills. If I'm a defensive line coach, and I know, based on Hard Knocks and the reports that are coming out of there, not only am I going to try to attack these guys individually, I'm going to try to confuse them.
Right.
And as a defensive line, and a defensive scheme, if I can get stunts going with guys that haven't had a lot of time together in camp to see those things, to work out kinks in communication. If I'm a defensive coordinator and I can walk linebackers up into the center of the line of scrimmage and make you have to change things on the fly, those are the things I'm going to take advantage of. To RC's point, like at some point, you got to decide if you're tough enough in the NFL, but the communication usually is what gets quarterbacks toward the pieces. That's my concern.
Your points are valid. I think that Aaron being there has the chance to help this offensive line. Number one, if we go back to like a couple years at Green Bay, a ton of the RPOs. RPOs will get defensive linemen just to play a little bit slower, second-level people just to play a little bit slower. I think getting the second-level guys running sideline to sideline will help. And then I go back to the Hard Knocks clip. You guys are talking about Hard Knocks. Remember in the quarterback meeting room where they were talking about the play fakes and they were making the other guys determine whether it was run or pass? Like, when these looks all look the same, Marcus, you could speak this better than I can.
You got to respect the handoff first.
Right, and so I think that him being so good with the ball handling also has the chance to make defensive linemen and or pressure guys just play a little bit slower. I think that can help
Which leads to this point, though. Okay. If we're just thinking about protecting Aaron Rodgers, you need to be a good offensive line to run block as well to make that play action pass dangerous.
You're totally fair. I think as long as those 5 guys get time together sooner rather than later, they got a chance to be a good unit.
Well, the clock is ticking. We've got just 1 week of preseason left. Let's get Mina involved here. Mina, how concerning is what you have seen so far from this unit?
Well, RC hit something that I think we haven't focused on. We're so worried about Aaron Rodgers' pass protection and how important that is at his phase in his career. I think the run blocking is equally concerning. It was a huge issue last year. Breece Hall was incredibly productive in this Jets offense, second in the NFL in yards per carry. But he only ranked 17th in expected yards, which is based on the blocking behind an offensive line that ESPN had ranking 31st in run block win rate. And while I do believe the RPO game and the spacing from the passing attack will help them some, this is an offensive line that we know, or probably an offense is not going to use a lot of motion. Right. Aaron Rodgers doesn't like it. And it's an offense where that play-action passing attack has to be based off a successful and coherent wide zone rushing attack. You need the offensive line for that to work.
To your point, to me, Aaron Rodgers' presence affects that more than it affects the passing game, right? Because last year, you put 9 people at the line of scrimmage. Why not? Like, if Zach Wilson or whoever else is going to beat us, we'll live with that.
Make them beat you.
So I think the run, just the spacing alone, that's why we're talking about this with Baltimore and Lamar. The spacing that is going to be created by Aaron Rodgers' presence, I think, will help them in that run game. But I'm telling you, man, you get this team the 3rd down, they're going to have some issues early in the season.
And as we know, with this team, the measuring stick is not being better than last year. It's winning the whole thing, right? That's why you traded for Aaron Rodgers in the first place. And speaking of Aaron Rodgers, Shefty, what might we see him on the field? Will it be all the way until the regular season debut?
We haven't seen Aaron Rodgers play in a preseason game since 2018. But he will play in his first preseason game in 5 years this upcoming weekend against the New York Giants. And there are people who believe it's important for him to be out there just to get a taste of the stadium, of his new teammates, the new everything all together in one dress rehearsal before that Monday night opener against the Buffalo Bills. Are they taking a risk? Yes. Are they subjecting him to the New York Giants pass rush? Yes. But the fact of the matter is there are people who believe that it's the right thing to finally put him out in the preseason, and so he will get his first taste of preseason football in the Jets preseason finale in the third preseason game.
Any idea if Mekhi Becton is going to be in that starting unit with him?
He has not been recently. Yeah. He has played better recently. Again, you talked about the fact that it's important for the 5 guys up front to play together. Yeah. Yeah. We haven't heard that he's being promoted to the first team, but
I'd like to see, if Aaron's out there Saturday, to your report, I would like to see Becton out there as well, because he needs the experience of him in the huddle and at the line of scrimmage.
It feels like they've stopped really far short of guaranteeing anything, though, for Mekhi.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.